Hey, it's Jeff Zito, and thanks so much for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast, streaming everywhere, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also check out past guests and episodes online at celebrityjobber.com. Please subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating and leave a review. Talk to celebrities about what they did before they were famous. A lot of guys had careers in a completely different field. Regular jobs. How did it all happen? And was there a certain thing that happened, a big break that changed it all? A lot of people just know these celebrities for who they are now, not who they were when they were growing up. Their mom, their dad, their family. We'll find out a little bit more about my guest today, one of the biggest rock stars on the planet, Alice Cooper. And I'll give you a little bit of context here. If you only know me from this podcast, I do 4 different radio shows, one in Tampa, one in Fort Myers, Florida, one on the Jersey Shore, and one in Detroit. And on the radio station that I work on in Detroit, Alice Cooper actually comes on after me on Detroit's classic rock station, 94.7 WCSX. So there's a little bit of backstory for you. Who is this guy? Well, I can tell you in real life, he's not the character that he plays on stage. He's actually a pretty normal, pretty cool guy. As you're about to hear, Alice Cooper is my guest this week here on Celebrity Jobber.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
Alice, thanks for calling me on your day off. I know that's pretty rare for you, right?
It's weird.
Well, why is that? Why do you work so much?
Well, you know, it's there's 2 different worlds. There's the world that I live in at home, which is pretty intense, and then there's the road. The road is almost, I have to go on the road just to get some rest.
Right, that's where you relax.
Yeah, this is when it's a different rhythm. It's a different rhythm on the road. You know that all your energy's got to be that night for that big show that night.
Right.
So during the day, I might play 9 holes of golf in the morning, have lunch, go shopping with my wife, take a nap, then get up and do a show. And by the way, now, instead of drugs, nap is the big thing. And it's because, and this is for everybody. This is not just for classic rockers. All the young guys are finally starting to get the idea that if you take a nap in the afternoon, you've got twice as much energy for the show.
I was just reading something just the other day that said Alice Cooper says rock star life no longer means drugs backstage except for Ben Gay, Advil, and Tylenol.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's like there's still drugs. It's just all the drugs come from Walgreens. But think about it. Think about it. If you're in a touring band, if you're in a major band, and this young band should be listening to this too, that if you're a professional, nobody in the band is getting so high they can't play.
Right.
In the 70s, in the 60s and 70s, that's what it was. Everybody was on those drugs, everybody was drinking. Now, nobody does.
Wow. And how long have you been clean for now, Alice? It's been a long time.
42 years for me.
Congratulations. Unbelievable.
But, I grew up, my big brothers and sisters were Jim Morrison and Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin, and they were all our big brothers. We sat and drank with them, and they didn't get past 27,
right? Right in the beginning, in Detroit, your family's not in show business, right? It was like this is all you. Your parents were, for less, lack of a better term, regular people. They weren't in the world of show business. What did your mom and dad do for work when you were growing up in Detroit and in Arizona?
My dad in Detroit was an honest used car salesman, which meant that we were starving because he couldn't, down on Woodward, he couldn't tell a lie,
Right.
you know. And so you can't make any money in the used car business if you can't lie,
Right.
you know. And so he found that he just could not tell a lie. I remember one time I laughed so hard. The one guy was going to buy this $400 car. And the guy says, well, what kind of power does it have? And my dad said, this car couldn't pull a sick old lady off a toilet.
Your old man had a sense of humor, didn't he?
Oh, no, he was funny. My dad was very funny. He ended up being a pastor, and he couldn't really do a sermon, which he did great sermon. He couldn't do a sermon without telling at least 3 jokes.
Really? So how the hell did you end up doing this with a father who was an honest used car salesman? Mom, was she a homemaker? And then your dad ended up being a pastor. How the hell did you get here?
Well, the funny thing was everybody in my family, we get in the car and everybody sang. The radio was always on, 50s, radio. Everybody sang. We all sang. And, it was just one of those things that everybody was good singers in the band, in the family. But my dad, when he was a pastor, had no problem with the Who or the Stones or the Beatles.
Interesting.
He thought he thought these are really good bands. He says, the only thing that I have a problem with is the lifestyle.
Right.
He said, I have a big problem with sleeping around and getting high all the time. He said, I can't condone that. He said, but I have no problem with your show. He said, I think the Alice Cooper show is really well done. He knew it wasn't demonic. He knew it wasn't satanic.
Right.
He knew it was just really like some sort of a Halloween vaudeville.
Right. Right. So they were supportive. Mom and dad were supportive.
Oh, very.
Wow.
Very much so. Very much so. Picture this. I'm 19 years old.
Right.
I think 20 years old. And my parents and all the parents in the original bands, all the parents had to come to L.A. and sign the contract with Frank Zappa.
Oh, wow. Because you guys were young.
Can you imagine?
Yeah,
that?
No.
We couldn't sign a contract. So, there's our parents meeting Frank Zappa.
That had to be a trip.
It was a trip. It was, yeah.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
So before music, right? I mean, because it seems like you were really into this. You were young, you're in high school, you're really trying to go for this. But did you ever have a job outside of music? Like, what was your very first job? Did you have like a regular job?
Nope. I was a lead singer when I was 15.
Really?
And our band started when we were 15 years old. And that's the only job I've ever had in my life, was being a lead singer in a band.
You got to be kidding me. That's unbelievable. So you never worked at a golf course. You never worked at a movie theater, a paper route, nothing. You were only in show business.
I was at my house one summer painting the house, and the radio was always on. And all of a sudden I heard, "She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah." And I went, what was that?
Right.
And it was the Beatlemania started, and then all of the British bands came over, and I immediately called up 2 of my friends and said, we got to start a band right now.
Wow.
And that was it. That's how the original band started.
And where did the vaudeville and the blood and the real Alice Cooper stuff, how did that come about? Was that a little bit by accident, or was that your plan all along?
Well, I mean, I grew up on really bad 50s horror movies. The Thing from Outer Space, It Came from Beneath the Sea, all this stuff. And when we were 10 years old, we were going to see those at the movies. And even at that time, I saw them as being comedies. They were scary, but I was laughing all the way through it.
Right.
And at the same time, later on, I realized that rock and roll did not have a villain. Rock and roll only had
good guys.
They had 1,000 Peter Pans,
right,
and no Captain Hook,
right.
And so I will gladly be Captain Hook. And really, that Alice Cooper developed around that. Now, you can't do that unless you have hit songs.
Right.
You have to have hit songs, and that's where Bob Ezrin came in. We wrote good songs, but they weren't hit songs. And then Bob Ezrin turned them into hit songs.
He's a legend.
And there it was. Yeah, then all of a sudden we were an entity that you couldn't just ignore.
What do you think it was, Alice? Like, I don't want to call it a big break because, a lot of people, they'll tell me that there was, a lot of steps along the way that gradually they had smaller breaks along the way. But can you remember a point in time where everything changed for you? Was it a particular album or you do? There was a big break where everything changed?
Yeah, love it to death. When Bob Ezrin came in, he saw us play at Max's Kansas City in New York City.
Right.
And he was sent to make sure that the record company that we wanted to sign us, he was sent there to get rid of us.
Really?
And yeah, he was just a young guy that was like an apprentice, and he saw us play, and he went back to the guy that was Jack Richardson, who did the Guess Who and all those guys.
Right.
And he said, "I know I'm fired." He says, "But I signed them." And the guy Jack Richardson said, "All right, since you did this, you have to produce them." Well, the next 5 albums were all multi-platinum albums.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. How the hell did that actually happen, though?
Well, he understood our sense of humor. He understood what we were doing. And at the same time, he was our George Martin. You know, he was what George Martin did with the Beatles. He put us in, he shaped those songs so that they could be on the radio without us giving up who we were.
Right.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. Celebrity Jobber.
What do you think about the business these days? Like, how has it changed? I mean, I'm sure we could talk an hour about the differences between now and then, but
I feel sorry. I feel sorry for young bands.
Yeah.
Because back then, you would sign with Warner Brothers or Columbia. We were with Warner Brothers, and Bowie was with, I think, Columbia, and Elton was with this. And those companies wanted you to be your best, and they were willing to put money up to support you.
Right.
And so, young bands don't have that now.
You're right.
They wanted us for 10, 15 albums. They didn't want us for one album. And they were willing to say, okay, here's $500,000. You guys are going to live on that until you start making a lot of money. And then you pay us back.
Right.
And so that was young bands don't have that anymore. And I don't know how they survive. You don't make money on records anymore.
What do you do? What kind of advice would you give the younger bands today?
I always tell young bands, especially, young bands that are angry. I said, what's going to keep you here? Your image is great. You're angry. I get it. But I want you to listen to the Beatles, and I want you to listen to the Beach Boys and Burt Bacharach. And they go, why? I said, because I want you to hear how a song is constructed, a real song that goes, riff, verse, builds to the B section, builds to the chorus. I said, all of those things have got to work. Then you can be as angry as you want to be.
Right.
Listen to My Generation. Listen to, but write a song. Don't write me a riff.
What do you think is next for you, Alice? I mean, you are so busy working all the time. I mean, because it seems like I've seen you 2 times within the past 2.5 years. So you're constantly touring everywhere. I mean, so is there more than music that you're involved with these days? Well,
the music world is really, that I will never be out of that. There's no such word as retirement in my
right
vocabulary, because I've never been healthier. The band I've got is the best band I've ever worked with, and we're selling out every place we play. So, I mean, it's like, why would I retire,
And you got Gilby Clarke on guitar from Guns N' Roses with you?
That's right. Well, Nita was signed to do 10 shows with another band, her band, before these shows came up. So these shows came up, and, I said, Shep, my manager, he says, well, we're not going to have Nita. And I said, well, let's just fill that space in with a great guitar player. And so Gilby Clarke, the first person I thought of was Gilby.
And it's
he just fits right in. I mean, he just, Guns N' Roses. You played with Guns N' Roses. and he's got that same mentality that we have when it comes to staging.
So it's Friday, February 7th at the Barbara B. Mann Performing Arts Hall in Fort Myers. And then on Saturday, February 8th, at the Sound at Coachman Park in Clearwater. Let me ask you this, Alice. You got golf handled while you're in Southwest Florida? Do you need a little help? I can help out.
We play every day.
I got a brother that's head pro at Avila in Tampa. You let me know if I can make a few calls. If you need,
you know what? I'll tell you what. Callaway sets up all our golf.
Oh wow!
And yeah, because I've been on their staff for 30 years, and so. We give them the itinerary and they set up all the golf. And we get up in the morning, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. We're on the tee.
Do you swing those Callaway Paradigms? I just got some new irons. Those Callaway Paradigms. Sweet, baby.
Yeah, I'm hitting something brand new called the. Let me see there's the Smoke after that.
Right.
And then there's a brand new one's out right now. So yeah, I get everything first.
Man, I envy you.
Yeah. I have over 60 sets of golf clubs at home.
Wow.
And in Maui, I have that many too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would imagine.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
Can you tell me, for my 50th, I'm going to play golf in Myrtle Beach. So I've never played golf.
Yeah.
I never played golf in Myrtle Beach and Kiowa Island, playing the ocean course on Kiowa Island. Can you tell me? Give me your top 5 tracks in the United States, if you can.
Well, I think if you haven't played Spyglass, Spyglass is amazing. I would say Muirfield in
is that in Ohio?
Columbus, Ohio. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
If you get a chance to play Whistling Straits,
where's that?
That's up in Wisconsin.
Okay.
Southern Hills, that's I think that's Oklahoma. Southern Hills is great. And you're in Arizona, I mean, there's so many in Arizona, it's ridiculous. But I would say Weekapaw.
Okay.
In Arizona. And if you're in Hawaii, McKenna. I'm a member at McKenna in Maui.
Oh, I'll have to call you when I get there.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If I'm there and you're there, you're on. It's impossible to get on. But once you get on, if you don't want to wear a shirt, you don't wear a shirt. You don't want to wear shoes. You want to play 9 guys? Okay, no problem.
You know what, Alice? That sounds like a golf course that we have here in Florida. It's in Sarasota. It's called Gator Creek. Have you ever played there?
No.
It's the same thing. You can play in a twosome with no shirts, no women members. It's pretty crazy. But a quick story. We were going to go out to play Pebble Beach for our 50th, and my friend said to me, he goes, hey, I don't want to be a cheapskate, because you have to pay, $1,300 to stay on property and all this. So it's, you're racking up the dollars already. He goes to me, what if it rains? I said, ooh, good question. Let's drive to Myrtle Beach instead. So,
well, if it rains, that's part of being at Pebble Beach.
I guess you're right.
Yeah. That's just part of being there. And it's kind of fun to play in the rain there, to be honest with you.
I bet it is. Alice, I'm going to leave you with this. I saw this morning my friend and your friend, Big Jim, on WCSX was talking about a small concert hall in Waterford, Michigan. It was called the Factory Ballroom. So it was only open for a few months, but you and the Stooges and all these really cool Detroit bands, even Norman Greenbaum, he said, played this little place off Dixie Highway in Waterford called the Factory Ballroom. You remember anything like that around 1970?
When we lived in Detroit, every single weekend, we played someplace in Michigan or Ohio. And I guarantee we played there, probably with the Stooges or the MC5 or somebody, because every weekend we played with a different Detroit band, because we were part of the Detroit clan there.
I got a Detroit clan of my own. My father-in-law, Uncle Chico, used to come check you guys out at the Grandy Ballroom. So I know what you're talking about, man.
Yeah, I guarantee we played there. Yeah.
Well, man, I tell you, it was. I know your time is valuable, so I really appreciate the time. I wanted to let everybody know again, Alice Cooper. If you happen to get in the blood seats, you're in for a real surprise. And Alice, you told me about that when I first met you at that thing in Tampa, and I gave you that radio station T-shirt of the Tampa Bay Lightning. But you told me about those blood seats, man, and you weren't kidding. So
yeah, during Man Behind the Mask it can get messy if you're in the front row.
Yeah, it sure can. Yeah, I don't wear new clothes. Let me tell you that.
No, well, if you are going to be in the front, wear white because the red looks great on the white.
So he's on tour in Florida right now so he can play golf. Then on that Rock Legends cruise, he's on a couple different festivals this summer and then a European tour. AliceCooper.com for tour dates and information. The great Alice Cooper. Thank you so much for your time, Alice. And
hey, thank you, man. Thank you. Say hi to Detroit for me.
I will do. When I'm in Hawaii, don't be surprised if you hear from me.
You know what? If you are, I would be mad at you if you didn't get in touch with me.
Oh, that's nice of you. Thanks so much, Alice. Take care.
Okay, cool.
See you soon,
Bye-bye,
man. Bye-bye. You know what? Even if he didn't mean it about the golf, it was still a really cool thing of him to say, right? Come on, look at this guy, 77 years old. He just had a birthday on Tuesday. His father, an honest used car salesman. They were broke. And then he turned into a preacher later on in his career. Alice moved from Detroit to Arizona, and really supportive parents. Can you fathom? Even back then, his parents had to drive them all the way to L.A. to sign the record deal with Frank Zappa. I thought that was a trip, man. And he never had any other job. Singer in a band, 15 years old. He doesn't know how to do anything else. I mean, he's a good golfer, that's for sure. Like I said, some people, they were just made to be a star. Alice Cooper is definitely one of those people. He told me a story about his big break was basically some kid, maybe a lackey, is going to get fired from the record label that he was working at. He was the guy that actually signed Alice Cooper. And I guess the label's like, well, great, you're going to produce him, okay? And the next 5 albums were all multi-platinum albums because Alice said this guy kind of got their vibe. He understood them. That kid ended up being a legendary record producer, Bob Ezrin. That was really how things changed for Alice Cooper. He was a fan of horror movies, so the whole vaudeville blood and guts thing, that was kind of part of his growing up. He thought those movies were funny, and I understand why. I really appreciate all the help that he gave me with his favorite golf courses. I hope my friend Craig is listening right now so we can go ahead and jot a few of those suggestions down for our golf trip when we turn 55 years old. Sober for 42 years, and he says he's nowhere near retiring. And he just turned 77. Well, thank you guys so much for checking out another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast, number 2 this week on the Apple Podcast Music Interviews chart. Hopefully Alice Cooper could put me over the top to number 1. We'll see. Please subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating. Leave a review. Past guests and episodes online at celebrityjobber.com. You can also follow on Instagram, celebrity_jobber_podcast, youtube.com/the@celebrityjobber. Coming up, I have got some unbelievable guests. I know I always tell you that, but it's true. Like the queen of disco, Gloria Gaynor. Very influential band from the early 90s, a jazz-infused metal, some called it death metal, atheist lead singer, my friend Kelly Schaefer, like both ends of the spectrum there, right? Thank you so much for checking out yet another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. Until next week, I'll see you then. I'm Jeff Zito.